Hi, my name is Leah, and I'm a reference librarian at the Fayetteville Public Library. And this video is part of our Get Hired series, which is designed to help you enter or re-enter the workforce. It takes place every Wednesday at 4:00 p.m. And we do have an archive of videos on the Fayetteville Public Library's YouTube channel. So if you like this content, you can check out more information about job-related skills and things like that there. But today we're going to be talking about PowerPoint. PowerPoint is something that is frequently used on the job. So if you are looking to brush up on your PowerPoint skills, you have come to the right place. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is PowerPoint good for? Do you remember the old slide projectors from school, or viewing someone's slides from vacation? PowerPoint works in a similar way. Slides are created and then projected on a screen and advanced through to offer a complete slideshow or presentation. It's very customizable and it can be used for any number of situations, not just in the workforce. It can also be used for sales, workshop presentations, or as a background display for parties and celebrations. Usually you'll have a reason in mind before you start your PowerPoint presentation. So from your computer, if you have a computer that has PowerPoint already installed, such as the ones at the library, you will click on the Windows button in the bottom left-hand corner. And you might see the icon for PowerPoint and be able to click on it, or you might have to do a search. So what I'm going to do right now is share my screen so that we can look at PowerPoint together. Okay, so if you are familiar with other Office products, particularly with Word, you will recognize a similar layout along the top with the ribbon and tabs and buttons for various functions. And we're going to use some of these functions today in class, but not all of them. All of the options can be a little bit overwhelming. So don't panic. We won't be using all the bells and whistles. This is really just an introduction, help you brush up if you haven't made a PowerPoint in a while. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, you have minimize, reframe, and close. You're probably pretty familiar with those. You'll use the same ones for your browser when you're looking things up online and that sort of thing. You might have a preference to have more screen space for your slide, and if so, you can hide the ribbon. And the button you use to hide the ribbon is right here, up there next to the minimize. Hide ribbon. But if you want the ribbon back, you just click on it again. You do have the option to show just the tabs, or to show the tabs and the commands. I like to be able to see all the buttons that I have options to press, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that up. So towards the middle of your screen, you'll see it's called Presentation 1. That's the file name, and it's always going to be called Presentation until you give it a name. And so here on the home, on the ribbon, we've got Home, and that contains the most used functions. And some of those are going to be for fonts, font sizes, and font alignments. The Insert tab is the next one over, and it's going to be used for inserting common objects like charts, tables, shapes, photos, screenshots, all sorts of good stuff. The Design tab is next, and that's where you're going to change the theme or the color variation for a current theme. Transitions is the next one over, and that's what you'll go to when you want to change what it looks like when you advance to the next slide. And then the rest of the tabs we're not going to go to today. Animation, which is what it looks like as a new point appears on the same slide, so not between slides, but within slides. And then slideshow, review, and view. We're not going to touch upon those today. There's also a mini help box to use if you're trying to find a particular function. I'll move my right here where it says search. So if you're looking for something, but you can't figure out what it is that you, where the button is that you need, you can click on search, type in what you're looking for, and it should pop up for you and let you know where that button is. And then along the left side of the screen, since we haven't really gotten started yet, there's not much to show, but as we add slides, you'll have some more options to rearrange and click through the slides there. Okay, so there's a couple of things along the bottom. So you'll see if I click away, you can see it says click to add notes. That's a note that you can write yourself, something that you want to say or a point you want to emphasize while you're making your presentation. So that'll show up just to you and not to the participant, the audience, the listener who is seeing your slideshow. And then similarly, there's this comments button that's up in the right-hand corner underneath the close button. And that's similar except for it shares it with other people. So if you're working on a presentation with other people within your organization, and I'm looking at a presentation that another reference librarian made and I want to make a note that goes to them, you can use the comments function for that. And then back down here at the bottom of the screen, you have some options for view. So we're currently on what is called normal view, but next to it, we have slide sorter where you can go through and rearrange all your slides. We have reading view where you can flip back and forth between your slides. That doesn't look like much since we don't have our slides going yet. And then there's slideshow view. And we'll get back to slideshow view a little bit later once we have some content. So I'm going to wait on that one and click back over to normal. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and make a sample slideshow just so we can play around a little bit more with the different features. So I'm recording this in August and it's still really hot and I'm looking forward to fall and to autumn. So I'm going to make a PowerPoint about autumn. I just want to make a really simple one to show as an example. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the design tab. This is where all the themes are and the variants and all that. And I'm going to scroll through and find a theme that I like. I kind of like this one that has a blue border. That's very pretty. Okay, so to choose it, now when I hover my mouse over the design, it shows it big on my screen. If I had text there, it would change my text to fit the formatting, but it doesn't actually select it until I click on it. So I can hover my mouse over all of these and see it a little bit bigger instead of just seeing the sample size to get an idea of what it might look like. So there's lots of cool ones on here. You have lots of options and you have options within your options. You can choose it and then choose a different color scheme. So I'm going to choose this one. And then the variants are here towards the left of the screen. So I have this nice blue paisley. I have this one that's gray and white. That's nice looking. I've got green, kind of a plant, botanical looking one. That's pretty cool. And then I have this blue that's kind of more geometric pattern. I think I'll go with the gray. I like the gray with just a little bit of blue accent. Okay, so then all you do to get started is you'll see it says click to add title and click to add subtitle. So you'll click there in the box. I'm going to title my PowerPoint Autumn. And I'm going to subtitle it Signs of the Season. Okay, so now when I go to add a new slide, this one is kind of fancier. It's the title slide. That's the slide, you know, before we're ready to start, I've gotten into the room, I've set up my laptop, I'm ready to go, but the presentation doesn't start for 10 minutes. So I'm just chatting with my colleagues. If I'm at a job interview, you know, getting to know folks that are there, not necessarily ready to jump in and get going with my PowerPoint. So the title slide is usually just kind of pretty. It sets out the topic and maybe a little bit more information with the signs of the season, but there's not a whole lot of information there. We're not ready to dig into the meat of the topic yet. And so the slides that follow it are going to be a little bit less pretty, but they'll have more information on them. So when I go to new slide, I get to select what kind of new slide I want. So I probably don't want another title slide. I have title and content, a section header, which is a little bit like the title slide, but just a different color. 2 pieces of content, a comparison, a title only, a blank one, content with caption, picture with caption, all sorts of options. But for my next slide, I'm just going to do title and content. So I'm going to call this slide Sensing the Season. And I'm going to include what you might sense during fall. Season. And I like how this looks. I like the font and I like the colors, but I think that that is too small. So to change stuff, all you do is highlight it, and then I'm going to change it. I'll change it to 36 size font. And I could change the color and the font and all that if I wanted to, but I don't necessarily want to. Another thing I want to note while we're here, this is new, and so you might not have it on your version of PowerPoint, but it's very handy. It's over here on the right-hand side. There's design ideas, and that actually gives you suggestions to make your PowerPoint look better. So not all of them are going to be fitting to your taste and the goals that you're trying to achieve, but it's neat to look through and see the suggestions that they give you. This one is pretty neat, how it has a thermometer and a leaf and a fork and knife, just giving the viewer more information, some visual cues about what you're talking about in your PowerPoint. So that's pretty neat, but if I click on it and I don't like it, I can just hit my undo button. That's up here in the left-hand corner, and undo it. And you know what? While I'm up here in the left-hand corner, I'm going to go ahead and save my PowerPoint. Something weird might happen today, and you know, my computer might suddenly shut off or something like that, and I don't want to lose my PowerPoint. So I'm going to hit save and call it Autumn. There we go. And you'll see it has changed the name there in the top now to Autumn instead of Presentation 1. Okay, so I'm going to add another title and content slide. Enjoying the season. Right. Pumpkin patches. Football. holidays. Okay, once again, I think that's a little bit too small. So I'm going to bump up the size of the font a little bit. Okay, and then in this next one, I'm going to do a little bit of something different. I want to include a picture. So I'm going to say, I don't want a comparison. I'm going to say to content. So the title will be, It's Fall, Y'all. And for the text, fall. And then you'll see here, I can click to add text, but I can also insert a table or a chart or a smart graphic or an icon or video, but I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to do instead a picture. And PowerPoint is loaded up with a whole bunch of stock images that are free for you to use and free for you to insert into your PowerPoint. There's some really good ones. So if you're looking to add a little bit more interest, I would suggest just adding a stock picture. So I'm just going to type in fall and see what I get. Ooh, I like this one up, the forest with the leaves changing on the trees. So I just pick it and I say insert. And there it is. And then you'll see over here, again on this design ideas side, it gives all sorts of really neat options to make the picture the background and have the words on the side. I think I'm going to stick with that one. That looks pretty nice. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add some transitions to our PowerPoint. So I'm going to go back to the first slide and I'm going to click on the transitions tab, and it defaults to having none, and that is a perfectly acceptable thing to have your PowerPoint transitions as. If it doesn't have a transition effect at all, that's fine. But as you can see, there's quite a few transition options. And if you click on them, it gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. So you can look through all of those. There's a couple of pages, and then this bottom arrow has even more. And those are sorted into kind of helpful categories. We've got subtle, exciting, and dynamic. And transitions can be a nice feature to have in your PowerPoint, but the subtle line there is often going to be the best to use. You might make an exception for a particular slide if it matches the content that you're presenting, but otherwise the exciting and the dynamic transitions can simply be too visually distracting during a presentation, and they might even take away from the points that you're trying to make. So I think I'm gonna select Morph. That looks good. And then over here on the left, you can see the duration has a default, but you can change that. If you want it to take longer to morph or less time to morph, you can. 2 seconds seems pretty good to me, so I'm gonna leave that. This is also where you can decide when you want your transition to happen. So typically if you're making a presentation for a work-related purpose, you're gonna wanna use the mouse click option that it won't change until you click your mouse. But if you're setting up a presentation for like a wedding reception and you want it to click through photos of the couple at different intervals, you can set it to change after 5 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever you want. And that's something you can do to leave it running in the background. There also is a sound option here. I don't know in what circumstance you would ever want to use this, but it is an option there. You can have applause, you can have the breeze, a cash register, a typewriter, playing when you make your slide change. I personally think that that would be distracting in almost any circumstance, but if you have a good reason to use it, it is there for you. And then one other neat thing here is you can select apply to all. That's probably going to be your best option for most professional presentations. You're going to want consistency in your transitions, and it can be kind of jarring if you are rotating through different presentation styles, different transition styles. So I'm going to go ahead and click that apply to all button. So we've put together a really simple slideshow. Let's go ahead and take a look at it and see how it looks. So I'm going to go back down here to the bottom to the slideshow view. All right, so from here I can go ahead and present this way, and you'll see that my Morph is built into it. I can see everything that I need to see, but you do have a few other options. Here at the bottom, it's very light, so unless you're doing it yourself, it might be a little bit tricky to see, but you do have some tools, and one that's the most useful might be selecting Show Presenter View. Now, since we were keeping it simple, I didn't put any notes in, but if I had, this is where I would be able to see what the audience was seeing, but and be able to see my own notes, but they wouldn't see what I had on my screen and had in my notes. So that's very useful if you've gone through the trouble of making notes. You'll want to go ahead and use that presenter view so that you can see what's going on. All right, and then you just go back here to hide presenter view. All right, that's the end of the slideshow. So you click to exit, or you can push escape. So some more things you can do to get a little bit more advanced with your PowerPoint is if you don't like any of the templates that are provided by default, you can also use the search box to try and find something that might be a better match for what you want to do. So for example, you can search books, and to use that theme, you would click the create button and the theme would be downloaded to your themes list. So let's try that. Oh, here we go. Search for themes. There's not really one that fits that exactly right. So I think I'm going to stick with what I wanted after all. But if I decided I did like one of those, I would just click on it and it would change my theme to that. You can also find and replace just like you do on a Word document. So if you typed someone's last name wrong incorrectly throughout an entire slideshow, you can find the misspelled word and replace all instances of that word by providing it with the correct spelling and then using the replace button. You can also use headers and footers to insert something into each of your slides without having to copy and paste it into each individual slide, and that's here under the Insert tab. We've got header and footer right there. And if during your presentation you'll be speaking from time to time, and you would rather that the audience focus on you and what you're saying than the PowerPoint, you can click or touch the B key on your keyboard to black out the screen, or the W key to white out the screen, and then you would just hit it again or hit the space bar to get your screen back. Before we go, I wanted to share some helpful hints. So using pictures or videos in your slideshow is a really great way to jazz it up. Title and bullet points can get boring for your audience after a while. Another tip is to use caution with transitions and with animation. Too much going on with audio and swirling text and dynamic slide transitions can be overwhelming to your audience, and the message of your presentation might get lost. When you're giving a presentation, you shouldn't just read off your slides. You shouldn't be tied to just reading every word that's on your slides. You and your information, your content, your report are the star of the show, not your slides. They're just a visual aid to help supplement your talk. And lastly, practice. Make edits to your slides and add notes to improve your presentation. You might even practice in front of a mirror. It's a good idea to time yourself to see how long your presentation is taking. And then one last thing that I wanted to share. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can, there we go. We have a book here in the library called Microsoft PowerPoint 2016 for Dummies, which has lots of helpful hints. That book created a list called Tips for Creating Readable Slides. So I just wanted to share that with you briefly before we go. So you should try reading the slide from the back of a room. If you can, go into the room you're going to make your presentation, set up your computer with your PowerPoint, and then step all the way to the back of the room and see, can you still see your slide? That's a good test that others will be able to see it too. You'll also want to just generally avoid small text. One good rule of thumb is that 24 size font is the smallest you should ever use. You also want to try and not include more than 5 bullet points per slide. If you have a long list of points to make, it's probably better to just make 2 slides. This one is a little bit silly. Avoid excessive verbiage lending to excessively lengthy text that is not only redundant, but also repetitive and reiterative. Be brief. And avoid unsightly color combinations. The color schemes in the gallery templates are designed to be easy to read, and so be careful if you're veering too far off from them. Shades of red and green especially might be difficult for those with color vision issues. Another thing you'll want to do is watch out for your line endings. Sometimes PowerPoint will break your line at an awkward spot, and so you'll just need to go back and adjust your text accordingly if that happens. You want to keep your background simple. Be wary of putting a lot of clip art or a lot of images on the slides. It might distract from your message. You'll want to only use 2 levels of bullets. So bullet points are good. Sub points can be used well sometimes, but if you end up having sub points, you want to just start a new slide. That's too much for one slide. You might want to avoid bullet points altogether. If you have a paragraph, that may say it all. And then lastly, keep charts and diagrams simple. PowerPoint has a lot of elaborate options. We didn't talk about charts today, but if you're creating PowerPoints for business, that's something that you might come across, and you want to use those sparingly and keep them simple so that they can keep their impact, be impactful rather than being busy and distracting. So in summary, you'll want to keep it simple, keep it clean, and keep it concise. So thank you so much for watching today. If you have any questions about PowerPoint or about other computer programs, please reach out to us at the reference desk. Our phone number is 856-7250. Our email address is questions@baylib.org. And we also have a service called Book a Librarian through our website. If you're wanting some one-on-one help and you have the opportunity to make an appointment ahead of time, you can fill out that form. We're currently not meeting with patrons in person, but we can arrange to talk to you on the phone, or we can meet you on a virtual platform to work through what you're needing to do. So feel free to reach out to us. Thanks so much for watching. Keep an eye out for more more titles in the Get Hired series, and have a wonderful day. Bye.